Welcome to the Lawyers Weekly Show for an in-depth look at the issues facing the legal profession.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Lawyers Weekly Show. My name's Jerome Doraisamy. I'm coming to you today from Camaragal Land in Sydney, and I'm very pleased to be joined for this conversation in the studio by Melissa Kerr, who is a partner at Coutts Lawyers and Conveyancers. Hello, Melissa.
Hello, Jerome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in. Now, today we are going to be talking about the lawyer as strategic advisor. Now, this is a conversation that is obviously gaining a bit more traction at the moment in the age of artificial intelligence, and given how everyone is having to think about how we pivot our daily operational approaches and strategy with clients and with the service delivery. And so I'm keen to dive a little bit deeper into all of these things with Melissa and understand how she's approaching these conversations. Mel, before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Thanks, Jerome. So I'm the partner of the disputes and litigation team over at Coutts Lawyers and Conveyancers. So that means I head up that side of things, both from a commercial sense, but also for individuals, handling all types of disputes. I actually started my career in tax litigation working in the Sydney CBD, but being quite a niche area, I moved in the commercial side of things, as well as picking up some building, construction, and employment law. After 8 years in the city, I did go out to the suburbs into a more medium-sized firm where I just found it was more suitable to me and the type of clientele that I wanted to assist, being able to work with your mum and dad type businesses, but also not compromising on the type of legal work I do. And that's what's been really good at Coutts, that I can do both complex work, but also have that medium fit and flexibility and things like that.
And what is it about litigation that has gotten you out of bed in the morning throughout your career?
So passionate about litigation. For me, not only being able to help clients through their issues, but also get them the outcome that they are looking for or that they deserve. Obviously, litigation is not ideal in terms of, the complexities of it, but also the cost. So I am very commercial in the way I think. It's about getting the right outcome for the client with as little harm as possible. Sometimes litigation is necessary and unavoidable, but we certainly have a conciliatory approach to our work. But just passionate about getting what's right, and I think litigation gives that opportunity, and I do really enjoy the courtroom. So
yeah, and I believe you recently became a partner at Coutts. I think we published something about your appointment a few weeks back.
You did, that's right. So I became a partner on the 1st of July. I've been with Coutts for just over 3.5 years. I was the head of the department after 10 months in the business, which was really, great to be recognised. But moving to that partnership leader role has just given me the opportunity to continue to expand, my wings and my career, and also to show that you can have both a career and also flexibility and a work-life balance, mum life as well. So
yeah, of course. And how are you finding the transition? Is it has it been smooth? Has it been a bit of a shock to the system?
Look, it's been quite smooth. Like I said, I was already the head of the department, so a lot of the decision making and things I was already doing for my team. Obviously, now I also get to contribute to business decisions about Coutts, which has been really, lovely to step up to that table with the other partners. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the future.
So let's talk about this idea of becoming more of a strategic advisor and shifting your position from being a service provider to more of a decision maker. And as a starting point, Mel, I want to ask you why you see this as being an important conversation to have. I noted at the top that in the age of AI, it's something that more, lawyers are going to have to be thinking about more in terms of the kinds of services they are able to provide for their clients, and whether it's them who's providing those services versus the technology. But from your perspective, and certainly as a litigator, why is it necessary to check in on this topic?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important. The law is really evolving, and obviously things like technology are pushing that much quicker. I think it's about not only just dealing with things when they come to a head. Unfortunately, there's always a perception with law, you only go to a lawyer when something's wrong. And we're trying to have that mind shift where people start to realise that if we're part of their business, we can hopefully try and stop these things before they get to that point. We can be more commercial about it, but we can also strategise for their business with them, be a part of their team as opposed to just somebody you go to when things go wrong. Yeah. It's really important, I think, to build that trust with those businesses, though, so that they are willing to openly have those discussions. There's a lot of businesses, and I find this with our own commercial clients, they don't realise they actually need a lawyer till you're in there and starting to look at things. So I think it's really important to get to know their business, know what they need, and be able to assist them in that process, not just at a point in time where things have gone wrong.
When you speak to When you speak to colleagues, whether it's within the firm or just more broadly across the legal profession, what's your sense of how cognizant lawyers are of the need to shift away from being service providers and become more like strategic advisors and decision makers? In the age of AI and certainly with the proliferation of new technologies, it strikes me that there is so much focus on what kind of work is going to be taken away from lawyers day to day, and are we going to be replaced by AI and robots and all of that, and perhaps not enough of a focus on what are the inherent opportunities here. If technology is taking away certain work, well, what does that free us up to do? And it seems as though there is starting to be a lot more of that kind of chatter, but it also seems to have gotten lost in the shuffle. From your perspective, are lawyers, generally speaking, cognizant of some of these opportunities, or is it I don't know, just not really in their peripheral vision right now?
Look, I think it depends on the firm that you're working in and how you're starting to recognise those things. With AI and other technologies, yes, you can ask this technology to draft documents for you and things like that. The evidence out there is suggesting that it's still not accurate, particularly in litigation. There has been several cases where incorrect, case law has been quoted, made up data in the AI world. I think litigation is something that AI will never fully be able to take over. Obviously, you can't send a robot to court. We certainly have had a lot of movement with litigation since the COVID times, being able to do a lot more online court. These are things that weren't really a part of the practice, 4 or 5 years ago. So there's certainly shifts, but I think the importance is that seeing lawyers as more than just lawyers is what this being a trusted advisor in the business is about, because it gives us an opportunity to work with key people within the business as well. So we won't just be a lawyer who sits on the outside as a third party. The purpose being that we would be at the table working with their HR manager, how they can do things better with their employees in the induction process, not only just drafting the employment contracts, but things that they haven't thought about. And that's what I find with our clients that we've already started this process with. There's certain things in the induction level that they haven't thought about, or with work health and safety that they don't consider. Even things like their business's insurance. Have they got the right insurance? Obviously, personally, as a lawyer, we're not doing the insurance side of things, but recommending them to the right people to seek out the right insurance. Working with their accounting departments to see what their debt processes are like. Have they got the right policies and processes in place? It's sort of just a big business overhaul as opposed to just being a drafter at the time.
So the idea of being a strategic advisor for a business and, having that seat at the table to influence decision making is something that's long been said about the role of an in-house lawyer. Do you see the role of the private practice lawyer being akin to that of an in-house lawyer in a sense? Perhaps you are an external in-house lawyer. Is that what we're kind of discussing here?
Yeah, look, I suppose it's comparable. The difference being, obviously, if you're hiring an in-house lawyer for your business, it's a salary that you're taking on, an additional, liability to the firm, as well as obviously doing the work required. In the sense of being the trusted advisor as an external, it gives them an opportunity for a more commercial, practice where we can, and the way we are doing it with our clients is having sort of a retainer situation where there's a set fee that includes a certain amount of work in that month, and there's exclusions and conclusions, and those discussions are had in the business proposal phase. But it also gives them a sense of what it's going to be as an outlay for them so that they can then factor it into their business budgets and things like that. But it's not a whole salary that you're having to pay. So I see it as quite a commercial, sensible approach to being able to have somebody who can do that. You may not need the legal side of things 24/7, but having somebody that can come into your business, know it as well as somebody that would be sitting in-house but not paying a full-time salary, I think it's a really smart way to move forward.
Yeah. We're chatting with Melissa Kerr, and we'll be back with more right after this. Mel, just listening to you speak, one thing that that caught my attention was this idea that if the role of the private practice lawyer is going to be shifting, against the backdrop of new technologies, how should lawyers be thinking about their broader purpose? Because obviously, a lot of lawyers, come into the profession wanting to service not just their clients, but the courts, the communities around them, and there's something very altruistic about that sense. How does that kind of mindset shift, if you are moving from being a service provider to being, more of a strategic advisor and decision maker? Does that element of service still form a really key tenet of what it means to be a lawyer, or is that kind of expanding a bit?
I think that service is still ultimately what you're providing, even as a trusted advisor in somebody else's business. I think what it requires, though, is lawyers who are wanting to get to this point is to think more than outside of legal. I think, taking the time to get more knowledge about being a business owner, how businesses operate, maybe further education in that type of area. Some people might go even as far as getting a master in business or something like that to expand their knowledge. But you have to start thinking beyond the legal, because the legal is one part. And yes, we are still lawyers and that's what we form. But as a trusted advisor, you start being a player at the table. And if you don't understand the commerciality of a business or what drives the business or their marketing targets or their, the point that they're trying to sell and the values, then you're never going to be the person at that table because you won't understand what they're trying to achieve. So you do have to think beyond the realms of law.
Yeah. You certainly sound excited by this prospect. But if I were to ask you to, psychoanalyze the legal profession as a whole, about how motivated do you think lawyers across the board will be to make this kind of pivot and become more like business people who can also provide some legal services as opposed to legal service providers, in black and white?
Yeah, look, I think it is a challenge. It's breaking a mold that we've been so used to. Lawyers are so structured in the way we operate, billable hour, dealing with things as and when it happens. So it has to be a mind shift. And I think once you're in it, you can understand the advantages of doing that. We've had really good success with the clients that we're already doing this for, to the point where they really didn't realize that they didn't realize that having a trusted advisor that could deal with these things was going to be so helpful. And it is hard at the start. At the start, it's breaking your way in, getting them to trust you, even getting them to hand over what they've got so you can analyse it. But it goes beyond that as well. It gives us as lawyers an opportunity to advise on things that businesses might not always think about. Often businesses are growing quicker than they realise, and they forget things like corporate governance and the requirements that they're supposed to do, their due diligence and things like that. So it's an exciting opportunity for lawyers to expand, but it is a mind shift and it's a new way of thinking.
So how do you go about making that pivot? As a starting point, what would be the key questions to ask of yourself as a practitioner? I mean, certainly nobody wants to get left behind, and that would be a motivator for them. But in order to get to a point where not only are they doing this, but that they're excited about doing this, are there certain questions that they should ask of themselves, personally or professionally?
Yeah, look, I think that lawyers should ask themselves, do they want to be more than just a lawyer? Do they want to be more than just a person sitting in an office drafting documents? Can they do more than what clients are now going to look to say, oh, well, AI can do that for me. Is it worth me even using a lawyer? It's about making yourself more valuable, I suppose, and even starting small steps with the current commercial or business clients that firms have and lawyers have, even if they start small by starting to say to those clients, have you thought more about this, or is this something that you would consider? Let us help you with that. So some of our clients particular, we only started small. It was more in relation to the employment side of things, because obviously those are the types of matters that come up more often than not. We started small with, can we, have an overhaul of your employment practices? Can we assist with your policies? Can we be that advisor for you that you can just pick up the phone when you need it and call us? And when we started those little things, and then they started to realize that, it was great to just have somebody that you knew your business, you trusted, you could pick up the phone and they could answer it. They started to realize I could use this in other areas of my practice. So I think for lawyers who are thinking about transitioning, just start with small steps. You don't have to go in fully and, start advising on all sorts of things, but start to educate yourself on how you can help the clients that you've already got.
You mentioned the idea of upskilling and getting further education. Now, obviously, not every lawyer is going to go out there and get an MBA in this new world. But what are some of the other ways that they can, look to broaden their horizons educationally and, take a more holistic approach to what it might mean to be a lawyer? And then also, how can they fit this in, to the Monday to Friday 9 to 5.
That's right. Look, for me, I haven't gone and got an MBA myself, but the way I started to expand was starting to do more CLEs that weren't just legal based. So particularly with all the anti-money laundering things that are coming out, I've been doing a lot of those seminars with groups that aren't just legal, but groups that are in the property sector and other businesses, because the changes with the anti-money laundering is going to be across the board. So I think if you start small with small education, CLEs are a great way to learn new information. It doesn't necessarily have to be a certificate that you receive at the end. But I think, reading up on things, there's so much material out there. There's blogs, there's, podcasts like this. So many ways that lawyers can start to educate themselves in order to get the knowledge to start the transition.
Just further on this point about finding the time to do it, there may be some lawyers out there who agree with the idea that they need to think more broadly and take more of a business approach to the services that they can provide, but they may then be worried about the fact that they also have to be upskilling with AI and figuring out how to find efficiencies in their daily practices, and the idea of having to not just learn about these new technologies, but then also learn about how to be a better trusted business advisor. And then, maybe they've got young families that they've got to go home to, or they've got all these other duties in their lives. How on earth are they going to fit this all into their schedule? What would be your response to those people? Yeah,
look, I do think that this shift has to be a firm-wide initiative. At Coutts, obviously, we're all behind this, moving into the strategic advisor. It's really where we want to see our business move. And I think that becomes very competitive if we can market ourselves as business advisors separate from the market of just all the firms doing just legal. If you can have that approach with your firm in general, then there should be the support in your network within the firm to find the time, because it does come at a cost to your daily billables and things like that. So I think as a firm, it has to be a strategic move as a whole to move towards this new way of thinking.
Yeah. There may not be a black and white answer to this because whenever I ask people, is there a magic number of hours that you should dedicate to investing in learning about AI? Invariably, everyone has a different response to that. And so maybe you'll have the same one. But when it comes to investing in upskilling on business-minded things and understanding how to be a better strategic advisor, how to have a seat at the table, how to do more than just be a service provider on legal matters, is there a requisite amount of time that one should invest per day, per week, in order to broaden that professional skill set?
Look, I'm probably not going to say much more than your previous people, but I think that it has to just be a daily acknowledgement. And I think that you can do that in the work that you're already doing. I think if you start to think if you're drafting contracts for businesses, start thinking, how can you take this outside the box? How can you think more like a business person so that you can get to that level? So I think every day is an opportunity to learn. I don't think that you have to spend hours and hours after your work day investing in education programs, but I think you have to make it part of your day.
Yeah. Mel, I've just got a few more questions for you, which we'll get to on the other side of this. Mel, looking ahead to the future, why do you think this evolution of the legal professional is an exciting one? There is obviously so much change happening technologically, and as a result of that, we, and not just you and I, but, we more broadly in the profession are now starting to talk about how the role of the lawyer is changing in accordance with those tech shifts. And from your perspective, why is this an exciting time, for lawyers, making this pivot?
I think it's exciting because we're moving away from the traditional way law was done. I think that we can't stay stagnant where we were because technology will get ahead of us. So I think it's an exciting opportunity for lawyers to do more than just law. And when I decided to become a lawyer, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And at the time, I thought law was it. But educating myself with business has given me the opportunity to grow. So I think that taking on this change and moving towards this more strategic thinking, it also grows a lawyer, gives them career development, makes them more competitive. I just think it's an exciting time. Yeah.
Is there a risk, though, that we will lose what we have traditionally understood a lawyer to be? And, could we possibly look back and regret, losing some of those elements of legal practice?
I don't think we're going to lose sight of the legal side of things. I think that we will just be adapting to maybe a more better, efficient way of doing things. I don't think that we're compromising on the legal side by being a trusted advisor. We're still there to provide the legal knowledge. And when I do these types of, trusted advisors with my clients, I'm still the lawyer. They still recognize me as the lawyer. They still understand that I'm thinking about it from the legal framework. So I'm never compromising on the legal side of things. So I don't think we would lose sight of that. There are still going to be things that technology can't do. Like I said, litigation and things like that. They're areas that technology, even drafting evidence and, finding relevant issues that need to be brought before the court. You're still going to need the legal side of those things. So I don't think we're going to compromise our legal training. We're just going to add to it and grow.
Yeah. As of the time of recording this, we had our inaugural Australian Law Forum yesterday, and one of the panel sessions that I moderated was about retaining a human-centered approach to legal practice, in the age of AI. And sort of based on what you were just saying, I'm wondering if you would agree that when it comes to service, being a servant of your clients, the courts, the community, it's not necessarily about losing that sense of service. It's about just reshaping it, and you are serving in new and different ways, perhaps new and better ways, and perhaps a really good way to do that is to ensure that you retain that human-centric approach, allow technology to do what it needs to do, but it'll just give you more time in the day to be a human, for those that you are servicing. Is that something you would agree with?
I agree with that, Jerome. You cannot get out of technology that, person to person, touch and feel, being in somebody's business, seeing the way things happen, particularly HR, employment type matters. You still need that person sense. You still need that emotion. You still need to understand. And I don't think that can ever be replaced by technology.
Yeah. So for you as a litigator, and you said a bit earlier in this conversation that you really love, being in the courtroom, if you are becoming more of a trusted business advisor, more of a decision maker for the businesses that you work with, how might that impact your ability or capacity to then be in the courtroom doing the thing that you love?
Yeah, look, I think that I can still do both. Obviously, as a trusted business advisor, my hope or my intention is that businesses won't get to the point where they need to litigate, but it is inevitable. And sometimes you're going to have to still be in that courtroom. So I actually think it gives me an opportunity to then already know the business really well and be able to litigate on behalf of those clients from the inside with the knowledge. And hopefully that will still give me opportunities to be in the courtroom. We're going going to continue to have part of our traditional practice in the litigation side of things with other matters that may be for individuals and not businesses where we are sitting inside as a strategic advisor. I don't think I would lose sight of it, and I hope not to, but I think that I can excel in that litigation as a trusted advisor as well. So,
And just for you personally, what is so uplifting and inspiring for you when you think about how your role, how your vocational pathway is evolving, and I guess how does that align with, the vision that you have for yourself as a lawyer?
Yeah, look, my vision is to really help businesses, individuals get the outcomes that they're looking for at the least cost to them, being commercial, trying to cause as least pain as we can in the process. So I'm excited that we can start to be proactive about these issues rather than reactive, which has traditionally been the way, particularly in litigation, that businesses and individuals approach legal issues. Having that opportunity to be proactive, it's exciting. It gives us the opportunity to foreplan and hopefully, help these clients become more commercial.
Yeah. Melissa Kerr, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jerome. It's been lovely being here.
And thank you to the listener for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a rating and review on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, as it'll help other lawyers discover and enjoy this show. And if you've got ideas for other episodes we can run, please get in touch at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au. You can also reach us on social media. See you again next time.